YouTube, what's happening? It is Wednesday, June 26th. As you can see, there are 16 games in the baseball world to talk about today. But first, drop a like, subscribe if you haven't, because yesterday we made bank 7-6 plus 0.15 units. Hey, green is green. It doesn't matter if it's a few bucks or not. We will take it around here. As you can see, last 7 still green, but the units are down for the last 7. And for the last 30 days rolling, up 41 for the season, up 69, almost 70 units. Still doing good. As long as we can stay green, it's all we care about around here. For the wins yesterday, Cleveland money line, great game. Seattle, Tampa Bay, and Toronto, Boston both hit their overs quite easily. Houston dominated Colorado. It was 5-2 of the final, I believe it was. Oakland, LA, Nerfy was a sweat because of some really long fly balls to the warning track, but hey, we hit it finally. LA won the money line. For the losses, we see Philly. And the second I saw Book It with Trent was on Philly as a mega well max 5 unit thing, I literally almost hit cash out because the dude is the best sports bettor in the world if you go against him. It's just amazing. He has a skill that cannot be matched. But hey, Screwball pitched great. What can you do? Hey, so Miami, KC, Nerfy is who lets them steal twice? And you steal second and third almost uncontested. It was wild. Either way, Texas, Milwaukee never had a chance. Oakland, LA under 8.5. LA's bats popped out all of a sudden. Minnesota money line didn't hit, and then the parlay obviously had Philly in it and Minnesota, so it didn't hit. So as you can see, 7-6, still green for the day. We take that. So again, drop a like, subscribe if you haven't, and let's go ahead and jump to that first game for the day. All right, first game, we got Seattle and Tampa Bay. Seattle's on a 3-game losing streak. Tampa Bay's on a 3-game winning streak. Kirby 6-5 with a 3-2 weighted against Pepio, with a 4-4 with a 4.61 ERA. You can see the Nerfy. They're both in the red. Nothing worth looking at there. Looking at the odds, we see that Seattle is pretty much a slight favorite across the board on the road. Totals are 7.5 across the board as well. Looking at the batting side, we see that Tampa has the advantage of the bats clearly here. Seattle, 3.3 runs their last 3 for 22nd. They're only batting 168 their last 3 for 29th. And it's Seattle. They strike out a ton. This is what they do. They might as well trademark the K because that's what they're known for this year, is striking out. Tampa, 6 runs a game. Fourth in their last 3. They're batting 298 in their last 3 for 5th. 9.7 strikeouts, not as bad as Seattle, but they're still bottom 10 in the majors. So they're not doing that well either over the last couple of weeks, you can see. So what we want to look at is we are going to look at a couple strikeouts, see how the pitchers have done strikeout wise, and see if maybe we might want to look into a prop. So let's start with that. Let's pop over to pitching. Kirby's going out there for Seattle with a 3.47, a .99. Game log, you can see recent games has not faced Tampa Bay. We'll start with strikeouts. 5, 6, 4, 9, 8, 3. Dude is all over the place. He's a roller coaster. You could get 3, you could get 9. That's not something I want to put my money on a prop. I want consistency with this. So if I was seeing consistent 6s and 7s and 8s, yeah, I would go for like a 6.5. But not when I'm seeing 3s out there and 4s. I want to pass on that. As a pitcher himself, you can see he gave up 2 pretty good games. Dude's a good pitcher. I mean, let's be honest. His last bad game was Washington a month ago. Literally, today's the 26th, over a month ago now. So once you're past a month, I really don't care what you did because you obviously pitched enough games to show how you're going to be since then. So he's going to give 1 or 2 runs, maybe none. That's what he does. He does get to face Tampa Bay's offense, though, which should, in my mind, incline him to probably be closer to the 2 instead of the 0, maybe even 3. It might be, could even potentially be a 3 or 4 game. So Pepio for Tampa, on the other hand, 4.61 with a 1.13. You can see his game log here has not faced Seattle. His strikeouts, 3, 4, 9, 8, 7, 3. Again, these last 2 games, he is not. Now, given he only pitched 4 and 3 innings, that's still, I want more consistency with strikeouts. I know it's Seattle. Seattle swings a lot and misses a lot, and they strike out a lot, but I can't put my money on this. I just can't do it. Unless, if you're out there finding like a full 5.5, maybe. But if it's coming back 6.5, 7, no, can't do that. So we'll look at the market to see what they got here, which is something I will be adding into the model soon. It's coming. It's in the works. We're going to start putting props on the board for Ks. The pitchers are going to have their own page where we break down things outside of what we see here on the screen. So It's coming. Just takes a minute. So, as a pitcher, you can see good game, terrible game against Atlanta. Terrible, I say terrible, not great against Baltimore. 3 against Miami, which probably is terrible. It is Miami. You can see he gives up 3 or 4-ish runs. So Seattle has the advantage pitching. We know Tampa has the advantage with the bats. We see the odds are basically a pick 'em. And for around here, when we have 2 things like that, they cancel each other out. That's a pass for me. So I'm passing on everything in this game. We're even going to pass on the strikeout props. We're passing completely on this game, and we'll move on to the next one. All right, next game, we got Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. Neither team's on a win streak. The model doesn't like Ortiz's name because the way he has the LL initials and everything, it messes it up. So another thing to fix. Hey, it's a spreadsheet. It's fickle. It's going to mess up occasionally. So it is his name, though. We'll look at his stats closer in a minute. Ashcraft is 4-3 with 5.05 ERA, 53.5 Nerfy percent. That's a pass. Yurfie 6.9. Especially with these pitchers and offenses, these are going to be passes. You see Cincy's pretty much a slight to a moderate favorite at home. Your total's 9.5 across the board. Looking at the bats, we see Cincy has the advantage, 6.7 in their last 3 for first on runs, 284 for 7th in the majors in the last 3, and they're not striking out much. Pittsburgh is not as good. 5 runs a game, which is not bad. It's just not Cincy good. For 12th, 225 for the last 3 games is 18th, and they're not striking out much either. So we're not looking at strikeout props. We see the offenses are doing pretty well. So let's see how the pitching is doing. Ashcraft, 5.05 with a 1.46, has pitched 1 game in June. 3.2, 6-4 at Colorado. It could have been worse. It is Colorado. Before that, you can see he has a trend. What's the trend? 3, 3, 3, 5, 3, 4. He's going to give up about 3 to 5 runs. That's what you expect out of him. So one thing we could look at is Pittsburgh team total. We could look at that. Or we could look at Ortiz here, 3.45 to 1.30, and see he got worked against Tampa. Before that, he had great games. Now, given you can see he doesn't pitch more than, that's what he pitches, not much at all. So we are relying more on bullpen. This is like a bullpen game because he does come out and pitch so many innings, but not that many innings. So the way they do it was a little weird. But you can see he has great stats in every game except his last. So is this a one-off? Or is he prone to do this? To me, this feels like a one-off that he's actually a good pitcher. So I would say the advantage in pitching goes to Pittsburgh in this one because Ashcraft, you know, is going to give up runs. He is consistent. He's like the Costco hot dog. He's $1.50 every day. You know what you're going to get with him. Ortiz, not so much. We don't know. And with the bats, we see Cincy is favored in the bats. Pittsburgh is pretty good. To me, with the odds being 9.5, I can't really take the over under in this one. If it was like 8, I would lean over, but I just can't do it either way. On the side, I would say Pittsburgh has the pitching advantage since he has the offensive advantage. So again, in this one, it's going to be a pass. Next game. All right, next we got Philly and Detroit. We got Turnbull going out there with a 3-0 with a 2.63 up against Holton, who has nothing, 4.05 ERA. Nerfy is 44.6. Yurfie's 10%. That's interesting. I haven't seen a green Yurfie yet, but I think we will eventually at some point. So I can't remember if it's 15 or 20%, but we'll eventually see that Yurfie hit a certain percent because in my tests, it did pop up some. So looking at the odds, we see Philly is pretty heavily favored on the road. We see that the totals are 9.5 across the board. Looking at the bats, we see that Detroit is actually doing better on the bats here recently as Philly has fell off a cliff in the past week. So, you can see Philly 4.3 runs their last 3 for 18, 275 for 10th in average, which is not bad. They were 6, but yesterday they batted 129, which was last in the majors yesterday. So 10 strikeouts a game in the last 3, only struck out 8 times yesterday. Detroit, 5.3 runs for 10th, so they have a run advantage. They're batting 308 in their last 3 games for 4th, and they batted 281 yesterday. 8 strikeouts their last 3 for 9th, so you can see the trends and everything. Philly's going down, Detroit's up. They're struggling, but they're trying to get up because they were 30th last week. So anywhere is better than the bottom, right? Started from the bottom, now we're here. So looking at the pitching matchups, we see Turnbull's going out there for Philly. 2.63 with a 105, has not faced Detroit recently, but you can see just like Pittsburgh, Ortiz, dude doesn't pitch much. Yeah, it's technically a bullpen game, it looks like, but it's not really because he's pitching 3 innings. Is that really a bullpen game? I don't know. So, but he pitches great every game, including this is his worst game. Boston was 2 innings. I mean, 2 earned over 1.1. That's not great for that one game, but overall, for his going out there, I take that. Those are good numbers. Looking at his counterpart, I can't because ESPN has not updated yet. So we do know that it is Holton who has 40 innings with a 4.05 ERA with a .8 WHIP. Pretty nice numbers. We can't really look at his before because ESPN is sitting on a undecided here. So ESPN, step your game up. Come on, other sites already beat you to it. So either way, back here to the odds, we see Philly's pretty heavily favored. It's a bullpen game. We don't know much about the other pitcher. This is going to be a third one in a row. I'm going to have to pass on this one and move on to the next one. Next up, we got Atlanta and St. Louis. Lopez with a 1.57 beast. Gibson 5-2 to 3.44. Murphy is spitting out 63.2 based on how the teams have performed so far this year in the first inning. Looking at the odds, we see that the books actually have them. Atlanta is a decent or slight favorite on the road, 8.5 out there on the totals. For the batting side, you can see St. Louis, just like yesterday, they have a clear advantage offensively. Braves were struggling. Only 3 runs a game in their last 3, 172 batting average in their last 3, 10 strikeouts, not as good. St. Louis, they're getting 6 runs in their last 3 while batting 343. That's hard to lose when you're doing that. Now, I will take this with a grain of salt, whatever you want to say. St. Louis was playing San Fran, and yes, there was a lot of extracurricular stuff going on in the last series, like the first game was in Birmingham and things like that. That's going to throw players off on both teams. So I don't know. St. Louis might have adjusted better. San Fran might have had more emotion involved, but baseball players are creatures of habit. You take them out of their everyday routine, it's going to throw them off. And it threw off San Francisco, you can clearly see. So I don't know if it's just St. Louis bounced back better, but to me, I think you got to factor that in a little bit. You got to factor in the extracurricular stuff that happened between San Fran and St. Louis. So maybe now Atlanta they're just not doing great. Let's be honest. So looking at the pitching, we see Lopez is a beast. You can see his numbers, 157 with a 108. You can see his numbers. Dude is potentially, I think, if he's going to be at the Cy Young contention at the end of the year because dude's just a monster. His worst game's 2 runs. Like, come on. What are we talking about here? So Gibson, 3.44, 1.20. He had a great game against the Cubs. His worst games were 3s outside his Boston debacle back in May, but then you're 5, 6 games ago. Recently, 3 a couple times. Okay, he's a good pitcher. Compared to Lopez, he don't look that good, but by himself, he looks pretty good. So this is why I took the Murphy yesterday. I think the pitchers are good enough. Like, I think Gibson is good enough to hold down this Atlanta offense because look at the stats. The Atlanta offense isn't doing too good. And I am confident in Mr. Lopez going out there and shutting down St. Louis, at least in 1 inning, just for 3 outs, because he is such a good pitcher. I don't care how hot St. Louis is. Lopez is hotter, in my opinion. So in my mind, we're going to rock with the Murphy again. We're not taking a slide again. We're not taking a total. We're taking the Murphy, and we're rocking to the next game. All right, game 5 of 16. We got Colorado and Houston. Houston on a 6-game winning streak. Feltner's going out there 1-6 with a 6.02 ERA up against Arrighetti Spaghetti with his 3-6 with a 6.36 ERA. Battle of the Sixes. Looking at the Murphy, 46.8. Nope, pass. Not with these pitchers. Ooh, Murphy. No, nah, maybe. No. I see the ERAs and I immediately think maybe a Murphy, but no, I can't. Looking at the odds, Houston is right at 200 again, just like yesterday. They were even worse yesterday. So the matchup is probably slightly more favorable for Colorado today, but not much more. Total 8.5 with a solo 8 out there. Looking at the batting, we see that Colorado is trending down hard. They're going downhill skiing like they're skiing in Aspen. 3.7 runs for 20th, 237 for 16th in their last 3 games while striking out 12 times a game for 29th. That ain't good numbers. You ain't gonna win many games doing that. Houston, 6-game winning streak because of the 6 runs a game for 4th. They're batting 309. You're going to win a lot of games. You're batting that well. For 3rd, you're only striking out 4.7. You can't get much better numbers. Houston's one of the hottest teams in baseball right now, offensively. Looking at the pitching, we see Mr. Spaghetti Man out here. 6.36 with a 1.74, has not faced Colorado recently. You can see his games. He had 3 straight good games, and then he fell apart against Detroit, and he gave up 3 to Chicago, which is probably where 3 to 4 is where he hangs out at. 3-4-0. So I'm expecting at least 3.5, maybe 4 runs here from old Spencer here. Feltner, on the other hand, 6.02 with a 1.48. Got up 6 to the Dodgers, 4 to Pittsburgh, 8 to Cincinnati. 7, look at all these hits, lots and lots of hits. So you can see, dude, he's more inclined to give up 4 or 5 runs himself. The total is 8.5, and I got 8s out there, and I got 2 pitchers that give up all these runs, and I got one team that's absolutely on fire. In Colorado, who is a roller coaster, they've been top #1 in batting. They've been 30th there. They're all over the place. So right now, I can just cut it right here and say I am taking the over of 8, because if one book has 8, offshore books, there's a bunch of them that have 8. So that's where I go. So I am going to be taking over 8 in this game because of the pitchers and everything. I am not taking a side today. When you have 2 pitchers like this that just give up runs like this, no matter who you see, I can't trust either side there. What I can do is sit back and root for one of them to fall apart. That's what I'm rooting for. Root for offense, take the over 8, move on to the next game. Next up, we got Miami and Kansas City. Neither team's on a streak. We have for Miami a guy named Belozo going out there in his first game of the year. Obviously, no stats for him. The model didn't break, there's no stats. So Kansas City is sitting out Singer, 4-4, 3.29. We know about Singer. Nerfy, 52.8. This for the year for the team is not worth looking at, especially with a brand new pitcher. Yerfy, 6.1. Looking at the odds, we see Casey's -200. Deservedly so, because anytime you're going up to somebody who's pitching their first game, yeah, we fade them hard, unless his name's Paul Skeens. So, looking at the batting, we can see this total was 8, 8.5. I mean, 8.5s and 9s out there. That makes sense. Batting, Miami, Casey, as I've said yesterday and the day before, they are struggling mightily when it comes to scoring. Miami, 3 runs a game for 23rd while batting 189. Casey is getting 1.7 runs a game while batting 140. 140 isn't going to win you many games, so I see why you're -200. It's because of this. He ain't even got a picture. So if you ain't got a picture, all we know is he's 5'10", he's 208, he's 24, he throws right, he's from Mexico, he's active. That's all I know. Nothing. He's a relief pitcher. He's not even a starter. So we don't know how many pitches he's going to go for, how many innings. We know nothing about this dude. You might as well just put an undecided here because it's the same thing. We don't know anything. Now, his counterpart, we know Singer. 3.29 with the 1.21. Outside of his game against the Yankees, dude's been pretty on point most of the year. A couple runs here and there. Against Texas, pitched great. So we know what we get with Singer, probably 2 or 3 runs. He's going to pitch around 6 innings. We know what we get with him. Other guy, not so much. So when you got 2, I expect that Miami got to give up runs. I expect Singer to give up a couple runs. That doesn't hit me to an 8.5 or 9. I don't get there. I need to be able to get there. Bats, do I trust KC to be able to take advantage of a brand new pitcher with a 140 average? I can't do that. I don't know you can, but I know I can't. So I don't. The offenses are so poor. Look at all these 30s on the Kansas City column. 30 is not what you want to see. That is terrible. So to me, the offense is just too bad right now. I can't even do a Nerfy because I don't trust this. If this was anyone else, where I see some stats, maybe, but I can't do that. So to me, this entire game is going to be a pass. Move on to the next one. All right, next game is Texas-Milwaukee. I think there needs to be an investigation done on the Brewers because they have messed with the pitching for the past 2 weeks now. They've changed the pitching lineup at least like 4 times now. You think someone's pitching, and last minute they'd make a pitching change, and then all of a sudden the game starts, so where it's hard to make an adjustment. I think they're doing this on purpose, trying to get a competitive advantage, and it's working. They're 47-33, so something's working. But I think Major League Baseball needs to step in and do something about this because this is making my job much harder. Because I like to place bets on these games, and it's hard when I don't know who the pitcher is going to be. Like in this case, it's Wednesday. You play a day game. You know who your pitcher is. Why aren't you telling us? What are you trying to hide? So, anyway, Texas, we got Evaldi. Good job, Texas, putting your pitcher out there. 3.14. We don't know who's pitching for Milwaukee. Nothing. Nobody knows. Everybody says undecided, so thanks. 46.6. Nerfy, looking at the odds, we see somehow we have odds even though we don't know who the pitcher is. I still don't understand how they do that. 120, slight favorite Texas. We have 8.5 and 8s across the board. Looking at the stats, you can see Texas offense is not as good as Milwaukee's offense. 2.7 and 220 average versus 5 and 297. Milwaukee has the slight to moderate advantage in the bats. Pitching, we got Evaldi going out there. We see what we get with him. 2-0, 5-2, 3-1, 5-2, 4-4, 4-2. Dude's pretty good. 4 is his worst game. And he has not faced Milwaukee, so his worst game was Seattle. I mean, that's not, those are good numbers. We like those. We'll take those numbers. If I was a manager, I would take this type of numbers over 6-7 games every time. So not bad numbers overall. can't look at the other guy because we don't know who it is. So I feel like I'm passing a lot today because I have to on a lot of these games, because otherwise you're betting blindly. And I don't want to bet blindly. We're trying to make profits here, not donate to the books. So the fact that I don't know who the pitcher is, I don't know. I can't base judgment on what we're doing here. I got to pass again. Next game. Next up, we got Oakland and the Angels. Oakland's lost 4 in a row. Angels have won 2. Estes with his 2-2 with a 5.53 is going up there against Contreras with 1-0 with a 3.90. Nerfy is highlighted in orange at 60%. We took it yesterday to hit. Day before it didn't hit, so we'll look at it today. Nerfy's 5%. No, passing that. Odds, we see that the Angels are slight favorites at home again. They were yesterday. I think it exactly was 125 and 124. Yeah, exact same numbers. Totals 8.5 9s across the board. The under didn't hit yesterday because the Angels popped off a little bit. As you can see, they both did a little well. Yesterday it was 7-5 final. The bats woke up a little bit. We see still 2.0 runs for the A's in their last 3 for 28. They're still batting 189 in their last 3. Angels are 4.7 for 16th and batting 217 for 21st. So both teams are coming up because they're helping each other work together. It's the power of friendship. They're working together to not be the worst 2 teams in the league. And the offense, that title goes to Kansas City and Miami right now. So hey, whatever, they're working. So neither team's really striking out that much, which is surprising for Oakland when they're usually one of the worst teams with Seattle. But these aren't terrible numbers compared to what they were 2 days ago. So to me, that's improvement. Looking at the pitching matchups here, we got Contreras going out there 3-9 with a 1.33. Another bullpen game, as you can see. We have a bunch of those today. It looks like it's like the 5th one. Bunch of short innings, but he gives up runs in his short innings. So if he's starting, it's almost like that 3 innings was good against Milwaukee. Outside of that, he's been up and down. He's pitched a good bit. He pitched, what, 4 days ago now? So Estes, on the other hand, is an actual starter, 5.3 to 1.25. Look at his game log. You can see has not faced LA recently. 5-2, 8-6 to Minnesota, 8-3. Great game against Seattle. 2-1, 7-4. Bunch of 8s trying to hide down here against Houston. So you can see he's up and down. He is the definition of Six Flags. He is a roller coaster. He is all over the place. So we see somebody who's prone to give up runs, 1 or 2 in his few innings, and you get somebody who's a roller coaster. So it's a little hard to judge this one based on the bats and everything starting to trend upward. And we have 2 pitchers that can give up runs. I would lean Oakland in this one, honestly, because we don't know who is coming behind Mr. Contreras here. We don't know who the backups are. So he's going to pitch. He could pitch 0.2. He could pitch 2. He could pitch 3. We don't know. That makes it hard to judge. So the odds are being where they are. Bullpen games are very hard to judge because you just don't know. So I can't take a side in this one because Estes is all over the place. Totals 8.5 and 9. The offenses are trending up. They hit 12 runs combined yesterday. We'll do that. We're going to take over 8.5 in this one. We got a couple 8.5s out there. We're gonna trust the offenses. They did it yesterday. Let's see if they do it again. We'll take over 8.5 and move on to the next game. All right, next game we have Washington, San Diego. Washington 2-game losing. San Diego 2-game winning. Hers is going out there with a 4.5 against Cease with a 4.14. 68.2 on the Nerfy is what they've done so far as combined on their teams. Nerfy's almost a 0. It's 2.6. That's the lowest Nerfy I've seen so far. Looking at the odds, we see San Diego is a pretty heavy favorite at home, 7.5s across the board. Looking at the bats, we see San Diego 6 runs again for 4th, Washington 5 runs for 12th, Washington 224 batting for 19th, while San Diego's 248 for 14th. So both offenses doing decently. Neither team is striking out much at all. So 6.3 and 5.3. I'm passing all day on strikeout props. Not doing it. Looking at pitching, hers 4.5 with a 1.33. Has not faced San Diego. Only faced 4 teams. 7-4, 4-2. Great game against Miami. 1-3 with those 13 Ks and 7-4-3 for 5. So he had that one game. I know everyone bet his strikeout prop the next game and lost heavily on that. So he's probably close to the 5 range. And he just was on. He was on one on this one. So we see what we get. He's probably going to give up around 3 runs a game. This is the outlier. Had a gem against Miami. Looking at Cease, on the other hand, you can see 4-4 with a 111 whip. Has not faced Washington, but gives up runs. 5-4, 3-3, 7-1, 4. 1 was Oakland. It was Oakland. And Oakland at this time, this was the 10th. Oakland was bottom 5. Offense were like where they are now. So that says a lot. So but the Mets rocked him up. Milwaukee down for a little bit. So you can see he's going to give up some runs. He's probably going to give up 3 or 4 runs. The odds total is 7.5. I'm taking the over. No question. I'm not even thinking about it. I'm taking the over in this one. I'm not taking a side. I can't do it. I don't trust either pitcher enough, especially San Diego minus 190. No. If it was like 135 maybe, but this is a game Washington could easily win. Like just like yesterday, I wouldn't be surprised if Washington could win this game. This should be closer to pick them on my mind. So, because the stats line up that way, the pitching lines up. Yeah, no, we're going to take the over 7.5 next game. Next up, we got Cleveland and Baltimore. Cleveland, 7-game winning streak. Baltimore, 5-game losing streak. I've hit Cleveland underdog money line the last 2 nights, and it has been beautiful. Today, we have Carrasco, 3-6 with a 5.4 up against Rodriguez, 8-3 with a 3.82. Nervy, 46.4. Not going to do anything with that one. Looking over at the odds, we see that Baltimore is a quite heavy favorite in this one. I guess Vegas thinks they're going to break their losing streak today. 9.5s across the board on the totals. Looking at the bats, we see Cleveland is stroking. Just, yeah, they're on fire. Ben Fuego, whatever you want to say about them. 6.3 for third in the last 3 games. They had 10 runs yesterday. 321 average for second. 7.3 for eighth. The bats are on fire. Baltimore, 3.7 for 20th, 264 for 12th, and 9.7. Baltimore fell off a cliff a little bit. They had a 1-game bounce, but we don't know if it's enough to really affect the trend. So we can see that Cleveland clearly has the advantage offensively. Looking at pitching, Carrasco's going out there with a 5.4, 1.38. You can see recently has not faced Baltimore, but he does give up some runs. 5.2, 5. Great game against Toronto. 6 innings and 1 earned. That's great for him. So we see he's probably going to give up 3-4 runs. This is why Baltimore's favored, right? When we look at Rodriguez, are we sure? Houston got it for 7. 7 for 2, 2 for 2, 7 for 1, 4, 2. He gives up runs too. So we have the totals are high for a reason because they know both pitchers are going to give up runs. 9.5 are out there. Both Cleveland's bats are on fire. The odds, we have Cleveland heavily as underdogs again. To me, with these pitching matchups, he's pretty decent. This is probably an outlier. He's probably closer to 3-ish runs a game. His counterpart gives up runs too. Whew. So, all right. So for this one, we are taking something. We have 9s out there. I'm going to take a 9, over 9 in this one. I'm not taking a side today. It looks like Baltimore's going to try to avoid the sweep. So I can't take Cleveland back to back to back. It's 3 underdog money lines. So we're not doing that today. We're not taking Baltimore. We're not taking Cleveland. We're not taking anything else. We're going to take the over 9, sit back, and just root for offense. So we'll do that. Move on to the next one. Next up, we got Toronto and Boston. Toronto finally broke their losing streak last night. Got the win over Boston. Rodriguez, 0-2 with a 5.94 up against Cutter with a 3.7 with a 3.59 ERA. Murphy's 56.2, nothing really stands out there. Murphy 5.2 is a pass as well. Odds, we see Boston's a moderate favor at home in this one. Totals are 9.5 across the board. The bats, Toronto in their last 3 games is getting 6.7 runs for first. Even though they finally broke their losing streak, they were still scoring a bunch of runs. 276 average in their last 3 for 9th. And they're only striking out 9.3, so you can see the bats are waking up for Toronto. Boston, 6.0 runs a game for 4th, 248 average for 14th. So the offenses are both doing well, and Boston's not striking out much. Looking at pitching, Cutter's going out there with a 3.59 with a 1.14. You could see Duke gives up runs. He gives up a lot of runs. That's just, he's going to go 6 innings. That's his job. They don't care what he does in 6 innings. Just go do your 6 innings. So he's probably going to give up, it looks like on average, about 3.5, 4 runs a game. So Rodriguez, on the other hand, he has not faced Boston. 1-1, 3-2. All this was back in April. This his first game back. He pitched 1.1, so it looks like he is a starter, but only pitched 1.1, 4 earned, 2 hits. Again, it feels like a bullpen game. He's probably going to pitch, 3 innings and maybe get pulled? They're trying to ease him back into it. This is like the hardest day for betting the entire year so far. Is it just me? But this is what it feels like. It's been a struggle to find plays today. So we have a pitcher that gives up runs, probably coming back slowly. We have another one that is just handing out runs for free to everybody. And we have two teams that are on fire offensively. I mean, 9.5 might be too low. So we'll take 9.5. Root for some offense again. That's another over. That's what? This is a fifth over. So an over in this one. Move on to the next one. All right, next up, we got the Yankees and the Mets. Yankees lost 2, Mets 1-2. Gill 9-2, 2.77 up against Manaea, 4-3 with a 4.16. Nerfy, not good enough, not with the two setups we have here. Looking at the odds, we have the Yankees as a moderate favorite on the road, 8.5 total across the board. Looking at the stats recently, they're about the same. 5.3 runs versus 5. That's after the 9-7 game yesterday, which helped elevate their odds, their stats a little bit, obviously. 237 versus 277. So the Mets have a slight advantage in batting average. Yankees, Mets are the same in runs. 0.3 is not a difference. 9 versus 7.3. Again, Yankees did strike out 12 times yesterday. That is the worst in the majors yesterday. So, and the Mets only struck out 3 times. So that's something to look at. That could be a trend. So, but for pitching, Gill's going out there 277 with a 108. You can see outside of his last game against Baltimore, I had his K prop and that hurt so bad. I almost cried. So you laugh it off and move on. So he got rocked against Baltimore. Great game against Boston, 5-3 against the Dodgers, 1-hitter gem against Minnesota. And then White Sox, Seattle, LA, all these teams were not great at the end of May at the end of the month. So these, take those with a grain of salt. So when he faces actual good teams, he does, like Dodgers, we know is a good team overall because they have the talent. He gave up some runs and Baltimore rocked them. So this should be an outlier because it's only happened once, but we want to see what happens. Is he going to bounce back to a game like this, or is he going to bounce back to something like this? That's what we want to see. Manaea, on the other hand, they ain't no bounce back with him. We know what we get. This is probably the outlier, the 4-1. So 4.16 with a 1.29. 2 gave up 3 against Texas, 1 against San Diego, 6 against Philly, 5 against Arizona, and a couple 2s and 1s. June just has not been his month. So we have Manaea, who gives up probably 3 or 4 maybe. And we have Gill, who, if he bounces back to what we think he will, probably, I don't expect him to be 1s and 0s again. I don't expect that. I'm expecting 2 or 3 maybe. That puts me about 6. That doesn't get me close to 8.5. So we can't take a total there. So the only thing we look at the side, and do we trust Gill enough to come out and get the victory when the odds, you can see the bats don't have an advantage. There's no advantage with the bats here. So basically, you're backing Gill or not, because you're not backing Manaea. I don't think you are. So, because with Manaea stats, you can back who you want. I'm not. And do I want to back Gill? After a game like this, I want to see how somebody bounces back. I want to see what they do the next time around and see if there's a trend. So me personally, I'm going to be ultra conservative here. I'm going to pass in this game. I want to watch and see what happens and move on to the next one. All right, next up, we got Atlanta St. Louis Part 2. Second game of the doubleheader. We got Elder with a 6.46 up against, it looks like it's Palante with a 3-3 with a 5.23. ESPN has not updated it yet, so we do not see what it could be. Nerfy 63.2 based on what they've done. This is game 2. It all depends on how the game 1 goes mainly on a lot of things. So looking at the odds, it's hard to get odds when you don't know what happens in game 1 because we don't know how many of the bullpen's going to be used. We don't know any of this stuff. So they still have Atlanta as a slight favorite, 8.5 across the board. Looking at the bats, you can see, just like the last game, I'm not going to go over them again. St. Louis, hot. Atlanta, not. Pitching is the only thing that matters here. Elder gives up a lot of runs. Let's just be honest. You get 7 triple sevens here against the Dodgers, 7-2, 9-6. Dude gives up runs. That's all we know. And we don't know who the other pitcher is because it has not been decided by St. Louis. There has not been announced yet. So typically the rule of thumb is in the second game of a doubleheader, it all depends on the first game of a doubleheader because a lot of times teams will split. Like if whoever wins the first game, the other team will win the next game. So I hate to do it, but we're going to do another pass on this one because there's just too many variables that I don't know that I can't affect. So we're going to pass on this one. Next game. All right, next up, Dodgers, White Sox. Dodgers 1-3, Chicago lost 3. Chicago almost had them last night. They had a lead for a bit, so I said it'll be a close one. Dodgers sweated out that -2 something win. So today, Stone 8-2, 259 against Fed, 5-2. 5-2 record for a Chicago White Sox pitcher is impressive. 305. Nerfy, we're not looking at that in this game, not with these pitchers. Looking at the odds, we see Dodgers are 180, 190 across the board. 8.5 your total out there. Batting, we see that the Dodgers 4.7 their last 3 for 16th while batting 250 for 13th. They're both Both of those are middle of the road stats. White Sox 1.7 for 29th in the last three, 184 average for 26. Advantage Dodgers in this one clearly offensively. Pop over to pitching. We see Fez going out there with 305 with a 114. Has not faced the Dodgers recently. You can see 7-5, 3-0. That was great against Baltimore of all teams. 9-4 against Milwaukee. 3-2-2. He's going to give up a couple runs. That's what he does. That's what we expect out of him. Looking at Stone, we see he has not faced the White Sox recently. He faced Colorado a couple times and did great against that one. Both times against Colorado, but Colorado's been struggling mightily this month. 4-3 and 8-2 against the Yankees is pretty good as well. So we see, I would say Stone has the advantage offensively, slightly, not massive, but he has the advantage here. So that's Stone with the advantage for the Dodgers. That gives the LA advantage with the bats. We have the odds at 180. I'm going to take the Dodgers minus 180. And with the way the Chicago is batting, I think their chance to win that game was the only game they're going to win in the series. So I think I am also, since I've had so many passes, I want a little more action today. I've had a lot of passes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 so far, because no, pitchers not being out there, bullpen games. So I want some action. I'm going to take the Dodgers. I'm also going to take the Dodgers on the run line. We're going to do it. We're going to do both of those. Not looking at anything else. Let's move on to the next game. Next up, Minnesota, Arizona. Neither team's on a streak. The model doesn't like two last names from Mr. Woods Richardson. Wednesday night is going to be model maintenance night, apparently. So many things to fix. That's the joy of having spreadsheets. So it is Richardson, though. Woods Richardson going up against Nelson. Nelson's 5-5 with a 5.18. Murphy's 43, not worth it. Murphy's orange, but not with these two. We're not going to do it here. Looking at the odds, we see Minnesota slightly favored on the road, 8.5, 9s across the board. Looking at the bats, we see Minnesota has the advantage. 5.7 runs their last three while batting 267. That's 9th and 11th. Not bad, top 10 range, while only striking out 6 times, for 3rd in the majors. Arizona, 2.3 runs their last three for 26. Only batting 174 in their last 3 games is not good. You're not going to win many games like that. Even though you won last night 5-4, you almost choked it away, but you won the game. And only striking out 7.3. So we have a Minnesota advantage with the bats. Looking at the pitching, you see his last name. This is why the model doesn't like it. Some sites put a hyphen there, some don't. Some just put Woods. It's what makes it fun to do a model. So either way, has not faced Arizona recently. 4-2, 4-4, 6-1, 3-3. You see he's going to give up probably 2-3-ish runs. He's not a bad pitcher. He's an average to slightly good pitcher. So this is what we see. Nelson, on the other hand, 2-1, 5-2-4. He's gem 8. Dude's a roller coaster. He might give up a whole bunch of hits and runs. He might throw a gem, but that was the White Sox. Let's look at who they pitch against sometimes here. So we see, I would say Minnesota has the advantage in pitching as well here. So we have a Minnesota advantage in pitching, a Minnesota advantage in batting, and Minnesota basically a pick 'em. Yeah, I'm going to take Minnesota the money line on this one, just like I did yesterday. I can get 120s out there pretty much anywhere. So we'll take Minnesota money line. We're not going to take a total in this one. I don't trust Arizona's offense to help out with the total, with the over. And these pitchers aren't bad pitchers. They're good pitchers. So we'll take Minnesota money line, move on to the last game. All right, last game, Cubs and Giants. Cubs have lost 3. Giants have won 2. Wesnecki, 2-4, 3-2-9s going out there for the Cubs. Giants are sending out a brand new pitcher this time. They're sending out Birdsong. Never has not pitched in the majors this year, so no stats, no info, no nothing. Murphy, 63, not with a brand new pitcher. We fade those around here. So odds, we have the Giants slightly favored though. 125 out there across the board. 8, 7.5 numbers on the totals. Batting, Giants have the favorite when it comes to the stats. They 4.3 versus 2.3 on the runs. Favor Giants. 212 and 211. They're the same team. So yeah, technically the Cubs have the advantage in the batting average in the last 3 by 0.001. Strikeouts 12.3 for the Cubs, their last 3 for 30th. Giants 8.3 for 16th. So if you're feeling like taking some Birdsong strikeouts, just if you really want to gamble, by all means, because the Cubs are last in the majors in their last 3 in strikeouts. So have fun with that. Pitching, Wesnecki actually has stats, but as you see, it is another bullpen game. Something about today. So yeah, he gives up runs. 1 inning, he's going to get, looks like he's going to give at least 1 run. That's what we see. So if anything, their Murphy might actually be in play because we have a bullpen pitcher and a first-time pitcher going out here. So I'm not going to play that. I can't do that because we at least have a picture of him. That's something. Hey, the other guy didn't even get a picture. So we got something. We see 6'4", 215. He's 22. He throws right. He's from Illinois. That's all we know about him. So Wesnecki is a bullpen guy, and we see this makes it hard. So to me, last game of the night, pass on everything. That's it. All right, that's it. That's all 16 games broken down. I have to say, this is probably the most awful, terrible slate of any day we've had so far since I started doing this at the start of May. So this is just an awful slate. I have passed on so many games here. So let's just do a recap real quick of all the games. Seattle, Tampa Bay, I passed. Pitt, Cincy, pass. Philly, Detroit, pass. Atlanta, St. Louis, part 1. I'm taking the Nerfy because of the Lopez and how poor the Atlanta's offense is. Colorado, Houston, over 8. Miami, KC, pass. Texas, Milwaukee, pass. Oakland, LA Angels, over 8.5. Washington, San Diego, over 7.5. Cleveland, Baltimore, over 9.5. Toronto, Boston, over 9. Mets, Yankees, pass. Atlanta, St. Louis, part 2, pass. Dodgers, White Sox, Dodgers money line, Dodgers run line, Minnesota, Arizona, Minnesota money line, and Cubs, Giants, pass. The only thing I don't have in there is the money line parlay, which we will do a money line parlay. It is going to entail of 2 teams. It's going to have Dodgers and Twins. That's it. That's the only 2 money lines I even took today. I didn't take any underdogs. I took 2 money lines, period. So we're going to throw those 2 together in a parlay. I don't even know if it gets plus odds. So 2-game money line parlay, Twins and Dodgers, plus all the other bets. Rough day out there. It's hard to pick. Just terrible pitching, terrible just ugliness. So drop a like. Subscribe if you haven't. Drop in the comments what you're playing because you see what I'm playing and I almost feel like not playing at all because this is just a rough slate of games today. So let me know what you're playing in the comments and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.